Good morning and welcome to Free Grace Community Church's live stream on Sunday morning from Nicaragua. My name is Mike, and today we are going to continue our Bible study of Revelation. This week we're going to do Revelation 14, but before we get there, I have a couple of things updating from last week, as well as I'm going to read Psalm 50. So I'll read Psalm 50 first, and then we'll get into the update from last week. Psalm number 50. The mighty God, even the Lord, hath spoken, and called the earth from the rising of the sun unto the going down thereof. Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, God hath shined. Our God shall come, and shall not keep silence. A fire shall devour before him, and it shall be very tempestuous round about him. He shall call to the heavens from above, and to the earth, that he may judge his people. Gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. And the heavens shall declare his righteousness, for God is judge himself. Selah. Hear, O my people, and I will speak, O Israel, and I will testify against thee. I am God, even thy God. I will not reprove thee for thy sacrifices, or thy burnt offerings to have been continually before me. I will take no bullock out of thy house, nor he-goats out of thy folds. For every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle upon 1,000 hills. I know all the fowls of the mountains, and the wild beasts of the field are mine. If I were hungry, I would not tell thee, for the world is mine, and the fullness thereof. Will I eat the flesh of bulls, or drink the blood of goats? Offer unto God thanksgiving, and pay thy vows unto the Most High. And call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver thee, and thou shalt glorify me. But unto the wicked God saith, What hast thou to do to declare my statutes, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth? Seeing thou hatest instruction, and casteth my words behind thee. When thou sawest a thief, when thou consentest with him, and hast been partakers with adulterers, thou givest my mouth to evil, and thy tongue frameth deceit. Thou sittest and speakest against my brother, against thy brother. Thou slanderest thine own mother's son. These things hast thou done, and I kept silence. Thou thoughtest that I was altogether such a one as thyself, but I will reprove thee, and set them in order before thine eyes. Now consider this, ye that forget God, lest I tear you in pieces, and there be none to deliver. Whoso offereth praise glorifieth me, and to him that ordereth his conversation aright will I show the salvation of God. So God here mentions that he doesn't really like the animal sacrifices that they were doing. And in fact, in Hebrews, it says in Hebrews that the blood of bulls and goats can never take away sin. So the sacrifices they did didn't do anything in terms of justifying themselves, because God only looks at the sacrifice of Jesus Christ and not the animal sacrifices, which were just a picture of the one and only sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. So that's Psalm 50. There's a mention of gathering his saints together unto him, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice, not by our own sacrifice, but by the sacrifice of Jesus is the reason we're saints, because we've accepted his sacrifice on our account. So by believing in him, what he did for us, that's how we're going to be included in the rapture. So Psalm 50. Okay, so I'm going to go now to some notes I had made after last week about the identity of the Antichrist. We got a few extra things about Donald Trump that I didn't mention last week that came up. They may be from more recent videos and stuff. So we're going to take a look at number one. The name Donald is a masculine name of Scottish Gaelic origin. It means world ruler or great chief. Donald Trump is the only one who has ever been known as the Donald. The Donald meaning the world ruler. So interesting coincidence, you might say, about his name. But oftentimes, especially in the Bible, names have meaning, and there's a reason people are named a certain way. So it fits for someone who's going to be the Antichrist, that name. 2 Thessalonians 2 mentions a man of sin. The ESV calls it man of lawlessness. So the Antichrist is a man of lawlessness. Donald Trump has been lawless through his second term. He's been ignoring court rulings. Let me see what this YouTube. I'm going to open this YouTube video, and we'll see. You should be able to hear this one. I'm not sure if it's going to be audible, but this is a trailer that the Department of War has put out. I think. Oh no, this is not the one. Trump ignored judge's order, invokes 18th century law to speed deportations. Okay, so yeah, they're reporting on the Trump administration deported a bunch of gang members by defying a federal court order. They were ordered not to. They were ruled against. This has happened many times during his second term, and he did it anyway. So he did it anyway. He defied court orders, and what did they do? Nothing. They didn't do anything to him. He got away with it, basically. So he's a man of lawlessness because they just ignore, this administration totally ignores the court rulings. They ignore the law. They go against the law. I'm sure there's many clips you can find of them going against the law. Even in Iran, they're bombing civilian infrastructure, which is a war crime according to international law. So they're completely lawless, this administration. The next prophecy, it says in Daniel 11:36, that the king shall do according to his will. He said, I can do anything I want to Cuba, and this was a recent one. I'm not sure why the audio is not working. Let me check this one. This is a short. Trump on Cuba, I think I could do anything I want with it. He says he'll have the honor of taking Cuba. Whether he frees it, takes it. I think I could do anything I want with it. So the king shall do according to his will. He thinks he can do anything he wants. He basically does do anything he wants, and nobody's been stopping him. And then the third one, in Daniel 8:25, it says, by peace he shall destroy many. And then he's got this slogan now through the Department of War called Peace Through Strength. And they just put out this trailer, sort of a trailer about peace through strength from the Department of War. So they're saying what their new mandate is. They're laser focused on their mission of war fighting. And they used to be called the Department of Defense. So they're just showing a montage of various different military stuff. Peace through strength is their new motto. So they think by waging war they can achieve peace. This is very much what Orwell in 1984 was saying. War is peace, right? The slogan "War is peace" from 1984 is essentially the same thing. Peace through strength. They think they can use war to gain peace. So by peace he shall destroy many. So they're saying they want peace, but then they're going to war. That fulfills 8:25, Daniel 8:25. So now there's some historical literary coincidences around Trump. So first of all, there's a book called The Odd Trump from 1874. The book features a protagonist named Trump who has a friend or rival / rival named Clinton. Trump and Clinton. And of course, Trump's rival in the first election was Hillary Clinton. Interesting coincidence. Then we have the Baron Trump series, 1889 to 1893, children's books by Ingersoll Lockwood about little Baron Trump and his marvelous underground journey. So it's all about, and Trump's son is named Baron Trump. 1900, or The Last President, another Ingersoll Lockwood book describing a mob attacking a Fifth Avenue hotel at the same location where Trump Tower now stands. Just a coincidence. The Last President. King of the Jews, 1979. A novel by Leslie Donald Epstein, who may resemble Jeffrey Epstein if you see a picture of him, featuring a protagonist named I.C. Trumpelman. So let's take a look here. I have a screenshot here. King of the Jews, a novel by Leslie Epstein. His middle name is Donald. Named one of the best books of 1979 by the New York Times. This 1979 classic tells the darkly humorous story of I.C. Trumpelman, a man whose fancy determines the fate of others. Chosen as the head of a Judenrat, Trumpelman thrives on the power granted him and creates an authoritarian regime of his own within the ghetto. By turns a con man, charismatic leader, and merciless dictator, Trumpelman reveals himself as an extraordinarily complex protagonist. So this was written in 1979. It's all about World War II, occupied Poland. Interesting, the name of the protagonist. And here's the picture of Leslie Donald Epstein. He sort of looks like Jeffrey Epstein a bit. Not a lot, but he's got that same mouth area. The hairstyle is similar. He doesn't look exactly the same, but maybe there's some family ties. I don't know if he's related to Jeffrey Epstein. Possibly not, but interesting nonetheless. But what the book that he wrote anyway. And then the first chapter of this novel is called The Golden Age, which Trump says he's bringing on the Golden Age. Quite interesting. We have his family names. So the parental name, Trump's parental parents, his mother's name was Mary, and his father's name was Frederick Christ Trump, middle name Christ. His grandmother was named Elizabeth Christ Trump, who incorporated the family business. She died on June 6th, 1966. 6666. Right? So interesting, the name Christ, the Antichrist is like a replacement for Christ, so the name is in his family. In pop culture, we have the Omen series. There's numerous similarities between Trump and the character Damien Thorn, especially in the third movie where Damien becomes like a businessman who's trying to get to the presidency. It's very similar, and he's the Antichrist, the Damien Thorn. We have Back to the Future 2. The character Biff Tannen was based on Donald Trump, according to the filmmakers themselves. They would said in an interview that Trump was popular around the time Back to the Future 2 was made, so they based the character Biff on Trump, because Biff goes back to the past, changes history, and then becomes like a casino mogul, just like Trump, right? So, and he has the same hairstyle, basically with that same hair. So it was based on Trump. And a lot of people are saying, well, maybe Trump was able to time travel or something, because these are like hints about what's really going on, right? So we have the Devil's Advocate movie. The scenes for that movie, which is about the lawyer for the devil, were filmed inside Trump's actual penthouse. There's this TV series called Trackdown, which features an episode with a con man named Trump who attempts to build a wall to protect the town. He was a con man, though. Like, his protection was totally fake, right? But it features a con man named Trump. The film Casablanca, well, the word Casablanca means White House. The writers of the film were the father and uncle of Leslie Donald Epstein, the same guy that wrote King of the Jews. The speaker links the name of the speaker. This video that I got this from was from Antichrist 45. He covered all these things. I can leave a link down below to his video. The speaker links the name Casablanca to White House, because that's what it means in Spanish, and a connection to John Casablancas, who, with Elite Model Management, was involved with the Epstein files, and he's involved with Trump as well. Casablanca. Okay. And then there's been some other artistic things happening. Charles Delshow sketches. These are 19th century drawings of futuristic aircraft that allegedly contain the word Trump and the number 47. We're going to take a look at those. This was in the Daily Mail. So this is by that artist. And we have this aircraft here. And at the bottom it says, "Arrow up Trump." And the number 45 on the side. I never saw 47 in any of these pictures. And then we have this, I don't know if it's a train or like a bus or something. It says Trump on the side of it, and it says 45.99. I guess 45 right there. And what else? There's another, I think there's one more right here, which is, and it was done in March 1920. And this is another vehicle here with people inside of it. The name Trump right here, and 45 right there. So that's coincidences. Real estate branding. Okay, so then in that video, he's mentioning the way Trump places his name on buildings with a T, which could resemble like a cross with the top cut off of it. Religious award, and then he mentions the religious awards that we covered last week, where Trump was awarded the Crown of Jerusalem and the Covenant of Peace Award to the Prince of Peace. That's what. So I'll leave a link down below to the video that these notes were based on. He was not a time traveler. Okay, Trump. There's a time travel conspiracy about Trump, and if you go to this Daily Mail article, and here's a picture of the Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey book cover, and from the inside of Baron Trump and his dog. So if you look at, YouTuber explains Baron Trump time traveling conspiracy theory. So we have this video. So if you go to this article, you can view this 3-minute video where they explain that there's this time travel conspiracy theory where apparently Trump somehow traveled back in time because his father was involved with getting the papers from Tesla when the FBI arrested Nikola Tesla. Trump's father was one of the investigators to see what was in his apartment, and apparently maybe he picked up some technology from Tesla that allowed them to travel back in time and then plant all these things in history. Right? That's basically what that conspiracy theory is saying, but I don't believe that's the case. But one thing could be the case is God can put clues throughout history, especially about the Antichrist, to try and warn people before the time comes that this person is going to be the Antichrist. So it's possible that all these so-called coincidences were basically God like inspiring writers and artists and things to come up with these things that are just seen as coincidences, but to the people looking for it, it would be, they would say, "Oh, that's interesting." It may wake people up to who the Antichrist is. All these clues, right? So I think maybe God was placing them throughout history. We don't know for sure, but that's a theory. Okay, so that's the end of that particular update. So that was the notes I had. So this week we're going to go with Revelation 14. So I'm going to start by reading Revelation 14, and we're going to take a look at it. So Revelation 14. "And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven, as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of a great thunder, And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps. And they sung as it were a new song before the throne, and before the four beasts and the elders. No man could learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. These are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the firstfruits unto God and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of God. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation, kindred, and tongue, and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountain of waters. And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast in his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb, and the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever. And they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast in his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. And I heard a voice from heaven, saying unto me, Write, Blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. Yea, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, Thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. And he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. And another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. And another angel came out from the altar which had the power over fire, and cried with a loud cry to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, Thrust in thy sharp sickle, and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. And the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was trodden without the city, and blood came out of the winepress, even unto the horse bridles, by the space of 1,600 furlongs. That's Revelation 14. That's a lot of blood, by the way. But it's figurative. I don't believe it's literal there. But so we're going to take a look at Revelation 14. It's sort of a mini chronology of the end times around the final harvest. There's a mini chronology here that is telling us the sequence of events. We can learn the sequence of events of the tribulation from it. So we have this mini chronology, and we're going to debunk the pre-tribulation rapture through this as well. So Revelation 14 is not a random collection of visions. It's a divine summary of the end of the age. It provides the high-level map that allows us to see the order of operations for the transition from the beast's kingdom to Christ's kingdom. So we've got the problem of the first fruits, right? So in Revelation 14, chapters 1, or verses 1 to 5, the 144,000 are mentioned, and they're also called the first fruits. They're redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. So they were raptured already at this point. In their mouth was found no guile, before they are without fault before the throne of God. Because they're saved, they have God's righteousness imputed onto their account. So they're without fault. That's what they're not. They were never like perfect to begin with, there's no such thing as anyone who's perfect. But because they're saved, they're without fault. But they're mentioned as the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. So in other words, nobody could have been raptured prior to that. And in Leviticus 23, we have the first fruits of the harvest are the first portion of the crop, which is lifted up to God in the law, right? So if the church and the pre-trib rapture mentions that they believe that the church is raptured in Revelation 4, right here. So here's where they're saying the rapture is. In the first verse of chapter 4, so they claim, after John hears, "Come up hither," that represents the rapture at that point in time, because they say the church is never mentioned after this point in the book of Revelation until 19, when they return. Okay, that's their theory. But the problem is, and they say it's like 7 years before the 7 years before the point of the wrath starting, I guess. The 144th. So if they were already raptured before this point of Revelation 14, they could not be called the first fruits. The 144,000 would not be the first fruits, because you have to be first in order to be the first fruits. They would be the later fruits, latter fruits, second fruits maybe. But they couldn't be called the first fruits. So therefore, the rapture cannot happen prior to the 144,000 being redeemed, because they're going to be redeemed first. So they are the pioneers of the resurrection. They are redeemed from the earth first in the sequence, honoring the biblical principle to the Jew first, Romans 1:16. Because all over the New Testament, we see that the pattern that God goes to the Jews first and then to the Gentiles, right? So Paul says to the Jew first and also to the Greek. So the Jew is always going to get the gospel first. It's a recurring pattern that we saw in the book of Acts as well when we did that study. It's always the Jew first and then to the rest, everyone else afterwards, right? So, and the 144,000 are Jews, right? It's explicitly said that they're Jews from 12,000 from all of the 12 tribes of Israel. So they were redeemed from the earth, according to here in Revelation 14. And I think a lot of people miss this part where it says these were redeemed from among men. So at this point, they're with the Lamb. They've already been raptured. It's done. It's happened, right? So then we have the next part of this chronology, mini chronology. So we have the 144,000 getting raptured prior to the beginning of Revelation 14. After the 144,000 are gone, this focus shifts to the remaining saints on earth, right? So we have the mark of the beast system moving into high gear, right? So Revelation 14, starting in verse 9, is the warning not to receive the mark. So obviously the mark of the beast enforcement is going to be kicking into high gear at this point in time. So it's a serious penalty for taking the mark, right? And then it tells you here's the patience of the saints. It's telling the saints to be patient because it's almost time for the rapture. So the rapture at this point has not taken place for the saints. It's only happened for the 144,000. Okay, so, and then it says, "Blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth." It's talking about the enforcement of the mark of the beast that's going to be killing Christians, as many as they can, right? They're going to be coming after us, the Antichrist. And it says their works do follow them. And that's talking about rewards. It's because Jesus says he's coming with rewards and he's going to reward the saints according to their works. So their works follow them because they're used to get rewards, right? So whatever works we've done are not going to be forgotten, right? So we have the mark of the beast system moving into high gear. Traditional preaching is not possible because the saints are being hunted, right? The war with the saints. And it was given to him to make war with the saints and overcome them. So the saints aren't going to be going around soul winning, unfortunately. Some churches think that's the case, but I don't think that's going to be able to be happening. We're going to have to be underground if you want to survive until you get to the rapture. So there's an angelic intervention. So verse 6, God sends an angel with the everlasting gospel to preach to them that dwell on the earth. So they're preaching them the gospel, which we know is to believe on the Lord Jesus Christ to be saved. It's the same gospel of grace that we know. And also telling them to fear God and give glory to him because the judgment is coming. So it's basically the warning. This is the last chance you have to be saved before the wrath of God is poured out on the earth. Right? So the angel preaches to the entire world. And as Jesus says in Matthew 24, that the gospel shall be preached unto the entire world, and then the end shall come. So this is that happening one last time. Right? It's the final altar call to the nations. And the saints are told to have patience. This is not going to be a 7-year wait. It's most likely it's a 45-day window. So if you go to Daniel 12, this is mentioned in Daniel chapter 12. And it says, Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,335, 5 and 30. 1,335 days are mentioned here. It's also mentioning the 1,260 days, which is the 3.5 years that the Antichrist is in power, because he has 42 months, which is 1,260 days. And then they're saying the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination, there shall be 1,290 days. This timeline is a little hard to understand, but I think that it's really saying that there's going to be like 30 days after the abomination of desolation. And then there's another 45 days of the high enforcement of the mark of the beast, where they're going to be killing Christians and arresting everybody and rounding everybody up, which makes up 45 extra days to this 1,335 days. So that's possibly how many days we're going to have to endure, right, before the rapture. So it's not a matter of being tested about the mark of the beast. It's not a test for the saints, because it says that only those who are not written in the book of life will worship the beast. So anyone who's saved cannot and will not take the mark. All who are in the book of life will not worship the beast and take the mark, because we're told that explicitly. It's not a test for us. It's the test for the world to see if they're going to take it or not. So then so Jesus promised that if those days were not shortened, no flesh would be saved. Matthew 24:22. Revelation 14:14 shows the fulfillment of that promise. So now we have the cloud. So we have one on the cloud, one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown in his hand, a sharp sickle. So he's told to reap the earth, right? So Jesus is being told when to reap the earth. This is not the judgment here. This is the rescue mission of the rapture, the reaping. Christ puts in his sickle and reaps the earth. So this is the general harvest, the rapture of the church, and the great multitude that we saw in Revelation 7. Right? So we've got the multitude in Revelation 7, which John was shown before we get to this point. It's out of order, right? So some things in Revelation can be out of order. So we had here, John says, After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number. of all nations, kindreds, people, and tongues stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. And they say, "Who are these people?" One of the elders said to John, "These are they which came out of great tribulation and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb." So that's the rapture in 7. But now we're being shown when this occurs in this mini timeline that Revelation 14 has. It's after the enforcement of the mark of the beast has started. Because if he didn't return, he said in Matthew 24, if we go back to Matthew 24, we can see a couple of things in here that he said. That no flesh would be saved. Except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. So he's coming to rescue the church out of this mark of the beast enforcement, because otherwise we'll all die, right? And the other thing is, he says here, only the Father, I think. No, the Father. No, I don't know. He says that nobody knows when the time is. So let's see. Oh yeah, but of that day and hour, in verse 36, knoweth no man, no, not the angel of heaven, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. So we even see this happening in heaven in Revelation 14, where the angel comes out of the temple that's in heaven, telling the Son of Man who's on the cloud, this is the time to reap the earth. He has to be told. He doesn't know. As he told people in Matthew 24, that knowledge has been limited from him, even though he is God. He's also separate from God. He's a separate being from God, but he's at the same time the same person of God. But there's certain limitations that were placed on Jesus, and that being one of them, I believe, even in heaven, he doesn't know when the time is. They have to come and tell him. So God tells this angel to go tell Jesus it's time to reap, because Jesus doesn't know. That's my theory with this. I could be wrong, but this is what I think makes sense. So he reaps the harvest, and then after this, the Bible teaches that the day of the rescue is the same day of the wrath of God. So Luke 17, here it is in verse 26. And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man. They did eat, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise also, as it was in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. So the same day that Jesus returns, when the rapture occurs, it's that same day, the wrath is going to start coming down, that same day. Because that's what he tells us in Luke 17. So he reaps the saved, and then we see in Revelation 14, right after that, another angel comes out, and that angel has a sharp sickle, and the angel that has his own harvest, but that harvest goes into the winepress of the wrath of God. So those are the people that are going to be punished by the wrath of God, right? Whoever didn't get saved is the lost, and they're being reaped, right? They're being thrown into the winepress of the wrath of God. So that, and then we have the timing for this too, right? So in Revelation 11, we have the seventh trumpet, right? So we have the two witnesses preaching for 3.5 years, and then they get raptured here in verse 12. They heard a great voice from heaven saying, "Come up hither," and they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. In the same hour was there a great earthquake, And the 10th part of the city fell, and in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, and the remnant were affrighted, and gave glory to the God of heaven. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Now the third woe is the start of the wrath of God. The seventh angel sounded. So then we have the seventh angel. There were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. So it's being announced that now God has taken over the kingdoms of the world. So that means it's over, right? Everything's over. He's going to pour out his wrath on the earth. So when is this winepress of the wrath of God happening? The same day that the rapture occurs. So if we say this is the rapture, that when the two witnesses get raptured up, we're getting raptured at the same time, at the seventh trumpet, right? And at the same hour, there's a great earthquake. This is like, as soon as we're gone, the wrath is starting to come down in the form of that earthquake. So the timing of this happens at the seventh trumpet. This is when the kingdoms of this world become the kingdoms of our Lord in Revelation 11:15. The Antichrist's lease is up, the lots are pulled out of Sodom, and then the fire falls, and the earthquake in that case too. It can't be after the seventh trumpet, because the mark of the beast could not be continuing to be enforced after the Antichrist kingdom has been handed over to Christ, and the wrath is going to come down. So we're saying here that because we know when the two witnesses are raptured, that's when the transfer of the kingdom happens. So this chronology of the reaping has to happen at the same time, basically. So the same hour that we get raptured, the wrath starts coming down. So we have this timeline that we're learning that Revelation 14 can tell us here. That's the entire timeline that we're seeing. So we have the 144,000 sealed. And so the 144,000, we see them in Revelation 7 and in Revelation 9, because the locusts cannot touch anyone who's got the seal of God in their forehead, which is the 144,000, right? So that was on the fifth trumpet, right? So they get raptured sometime between the fifth trumpet and the seventh trumpet. We're not told when, but they're first fruits, right? So they're redeemed as first fruits. Then we have that 45-day countdown. High gear mark enforcement, the mark of the beast being enforced after the 144,000 get redeemed. The angel's gospel comes during that time because the saints are busy avoiding getting arrested. So the final global warning while the church is under pressure, it comes out. And then we have the seventh trumpet, which coincides with Jesus reaping the general harvest, the church. And then we have the vials of wrath. The wine press begins the moment the church is saved. So after this chapter, we're going to see the vials of wrath start happening. So in chapter 15, which we can read, we can actually read that. We have time. So we have, if you see the mark of the beast being enforced, do not fear. It is the sign that the first fruits have already been raptured. That's the 144,000. And the Son of Man is sitting on the cloud with his sickle, just getting ready. The patience required is short. The rescue and wrath happen together. And so as believers, we are reaped into his presence before the first drop of the wine press touches the earth. So before the wrath comes down, right? So just a summary of that timeline. And the other thing is, we have another piece of the timeline in Daniel 12. So first of all, if we go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, we have some clues about the timeline of when the Antichrist is revealed, where it says, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day, which is the rapture, shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. This is the abomination of desolation. So from then, another 45 days is the rapture. That's the theory anyway. Remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things. And now you know what withholdeth that he might be revealed in his time. This is saying that now you know what event has to happen first before the Antichrist can be revealed. He has to sit in the temple. That's what he's talking about. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. Who's he? We don't know who he is here. This person is called the restrainer. And a lot of people say, well, he is obviously the restrainer is the Holy Spirit, so when we get raptured, he gets taken out of the way. You're reading into the text at this point. We don't know. It does not say that. It says, and then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. So there's a restrainer that's preventing the Antichrist from being revealed until he's taken out of the way. So the only other place in the Bible where we have a clue about the restrainer, who it is in Daniel chapter 12. It says, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. So and then it says, and many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. I note that this verse is taking place 1,000 years apart. So there's two resurrections, one for everlasting life and one for everlasting contempt. But that one doesn't take place until the great white throne judgment, which is over 1,000 years later. So this is one of those dual prophecies here. And then we have the tribulation being mentioned, the time of trouble that there never was, which is also mentioned by Jesus as being, there will be a tribulation such that was never before happened and never will be again, basically. And so we have Michael the archangel. It says he stands up, and then there's the great tribulation. So the Antichrist is revealed at that time. So my view on this is that Michael the archangel is that restrainer. He's stopping the Antichrist from being revealed. And the other place that we do see Michael the archangel is in Revelation 12. So we have, there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. So there's a war in heaven. This is when Michael stands up, right? And he casts out Satan. So the restrainer, stops restraining at this point, and then the Antichrist gets revealed. That's what I believe is being taught here. So we have that. That was that last piece of the timeline there. So then we'll just go to Revelation 15. So we have the timeline of Revelation 14. A lot of times you just gloss over Revelation 14 and you don't realize that it actually gives you a lot of information about when things are going to happen. There's one more thing that I wanted to cover, and it is what is the answer to why am I so consistent that the rapture happens at the seventh trumpet? Why do we say that we want to say that it's the seventh trumpet? So if we go to 1 Corinthians 15 about the rapture, right? We're told, behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. That's one place it shows the last trump. We also have 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, where it says, For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of God. And the dead in Christ shall rise first. A trumpet is mentioned there. So why would there be not a trumpet somewhere else that we could look to see maybe that's the one? And I think it's the seventh trumpet. It seems to all line up to be that. So that means we're here for the trumpet judgments, right? But those who are sealed by God, which we are already, once you're saved, you are sealed by the Holy Spirit. You're going to be protected from those seven trumpet judgments, right? So they're not part of the wrath of God. The wrath comes after that. So we will probably have to be here during that time. So that's why I say the seventh trumpet is probably when the rapture takes place, because we are told it's at the last trump. And I'm not going to make up any random trumpet out of thin air. I'm going to look to what the Bible says, because people just make up, oh, it must be some other trumpet. It can't be the seventh trumpet, right? Because they believe in a pre-trib rapture. But it can't be a pre-trib rapture because the rapture can't happen before the 144,000, the firstfruits. So now we have Revelation 15, and I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous. So I'll read this, and then we're going to continue next week with going through it. 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. Who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name? For thou only art holy. For all nations shall come and worship before thee, for thy judgments are made manifest. And after that I looked, and behold, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven was opened, and the 7 angels came out of the temple, having the 7 plagues, clothed in pure and white linen, and having their breasts girded with golden girdles. And one of the 4 beasts gave unto the 7 angels 7 golden vials full of the wrath of God, who lives forever and ever. And the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power, and no man was able to enter into the temple till the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were fulfilled. So now we're starting to pour out the wrath. So I think that's everything that I was wanting to cover today. So we will end the stream here. So please like and subscribe. Put your comments down below. You may disagree with me on some things. That's fine. We're dealing with prophecy. We don't know exactly what's going to happen until it actually happens. This is just my best theories on what is going to happen based on what the Bible tells us. So until next week, God bless, and we will see you next time.